Try this one. Try this one.
DJ Muxa.
What is good, everybody? Welcome in. We are so glad you are joining us here today. A little later than normal Wednesday show. Of course, happy Halloween to you and yours yesterday. Hope you guys had fun collecting some candy, scaring some kids, whatever you might have had going on. We previewing Wednesday night here, UFC Sao Paulo, a good fight card in Brazil. Their UFC's return to Brazil in a non-pay-per-view capacity. We are so excited to preview this guy here. And of course, my name is Austin Swaim. I'm from FanDuel. I crunch numbers for a living. And I am joined here by the real star of the show, the man, the myth, the legend, one of my good friends, Mr. Matty Tanner. Matty, interesting card. A lot of Brazilian flavor on this one. Pay-per-view coming next week. UFC vibes are high after the off week. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, bro. I'm pumped up. I'm ready for this Derek Lewis fight. Has me a little bit excited. Not the craziest card in the world here, but we have UFC back, and that's what's important.
Whenever we have Derek Lewis, quite literally anything is on the table and possible. So at least we have some
100%.
sort of oddity or some sort of intergalactic moment that could happen on Saturday. You know, we'll talk about the wide betting line when we get there. But interesting card, at least one Brazilian in every fight this week. So as you'd expect, loading up. Last time we were in Sao Paulo, Colby Covington decided to call the entire crowd dirty animals. So who knows what we're going to see this fight card here.
Bro, by the way, we have
yeah.
to get you out to Vegas for that fight in December, bro. I'm bringing 8 of my boys. Leon versus Colby card, December 16th. You gotta come, bro.
I've never been to the T-Mobile. I've been to Vegas a time before. I've never been to T-Mobile for a UFC card. I always said I wanted to go to the Apex just because they have like the museum and the Ultimate Fighter stuff. I'd be down to go to T-Mobile for sure. And that fight with Leon and Colby, we'll see if I'm badly wrong on it, if I make my mind up. I'm starting to think maybe I'm just really low on Leon Edwards and I need to shift that around before I lose a ton of money in December. So sounds like a plan. So let's dive into this guy here. We have at this point 13 fights, I believe. It is very odd what's happened to a couple of these fights this week. We've like had an injury replacement, not had an injury replacement, whatever's going on. But this guy's going to open the card here. As you'd expect, not a ton of jazz or juice around this one, but Mark Jacasey's guy we've seen here at lightweight. And how the mighty have fallen, because this guy was like once a top prospect in UFC. Overall, now just a 7-7 record with the promotion. In his last fight, kind of had that headbutt situation with Joel Alvarez. I kind of liked him as an underdog, and then Alvarez got a headbutt, ended up in a Darce choke. So Jacasey probably fighting for his contract here against a newcomer, Fernandez, coming from LF. A couple of knockouts, a couple of sick knockouts, had a nice leg kick in the clinch if you haven't seen it, taping him this week. Interesting guy to give Jacasey at this point, where he's kind of on this up and down path in his career where he's had some good results mixed in with some really, really frightening ones. So Matty, do you have a lean on our guy Bone Crusher here or Mr. Fernandez? Because I've heard pretty strong opinions on both sides of this fight.
I'll let you lead off, bro, because I'm not even going to pretend that I prepared for this last second fight here.
These are the ones where it really is kind of a guessing game. If you remember that Trevor Peek fight a couple of weeks ago, like I had no idea what that fight was going to look like. It was even worse though than I would have thought. I don't really know what to do. This is really the one fight of the week where I don't have a specific lean. What is up, Mushroom? I'm so happy to see you guys. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Coming around whenever we happen to go live. We're very, very thankful for that. We thought it was a good idea to give you guys the holiday yesterday. But Jacasey's a guy, he's kind of a hard guy to figure out for me. His last 2 wins have come against guys who had sub 35% takedown defenses, and he's a pretty good wrestler. Good card. We've seen him kind of lay and prey on a couple of guys before, and really start to revert back to that wrestling heavy. He actually took down Joel Alvarez a couple of times last time. If you gave me like a good assessment of Fernandez's takedown defense, I could give you a better opinion of this fight. However, we don't have that luxury. I will say it's a little concerning for Fernandez that a couple of fights ago, he melted in the 3rd round. There were 10-8s across the board in the 3rd round of a decision loss a couple of times ago in LFA. Mark Jacasey's a really good UFC fighter. So if you don't have your cardio in check, if you don't have your power in check, if you don't have your takedown defense in check, Jacasey can absolutely take advantage of that. But like, wouldn't you agree, Maddie, that Jacasey's a bit of an unreliable source? I don't know if you bet him for or against in recent fights or have a good read on him whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I thought he didn't look bad in that Alvarez
Got
fight.
jobbed there, because like there was a clear headbutt, was not called. We've seen like fights stopped for far worse recently. I think back to the Malkoun elbow, right? Like it was a pretty substantial headbutt that the referee just missed, So like he had a couple of takedowns. He arguably won the first round with control time there. Like, yeah, I'm totally with David. It's like he just seems wholly unreliable. At this point, I would have preferred to back a guy. If I'm going to lay minus 154, or whatever he's coming back on FanDuel Sportsbook, I want a guy that's not losing to Michael Johnson, preferably in 2022. That's he lost in December.
Yeah.
Couldn't land a single takedown on Johnson. So I'm worried if Fernandez's takedown defense holds up, this is a lopsided win for the newcomer who appears to at least have some striking prowess behind him. So not a strong this one.
Yeah, I kind of want to take a flyer here on the Brazilian, like
Yeah.
on the plus money here. I mean, 2 straight kick knockouts, one to the head, one to the body. Then he lost the decision before that, won a decision. Then he has a lot of first and second round finishes.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the kick against Felipe Douglas, I invite you to do it. It was like a head kick from the clinch. I've never seen somebody almost like Chidi and Joe Kwani's, where he's got those really flexible hips. Like that was an insane level of flexibility to be able to get a hard head kick up from that position. I was kind of startled watching it. And Jacasey's not a guy that has a super reliable chin, 53% striking defense, not great. So I'm kind of with you, Maddie. I don't know if this one will end up making the card, but I really don't like laying chalk with guys like Mark Jacasey. That's my final verdict. So
let's see what it would pay for Jacasey to lose a decision. That's what I want to take a look at. I mean, like you said, his defense isn't great, but it hasn't been knocked out.
Yeah,
has been submitted 3 times though.
Yeah, and Fernandez at least has shown some interesting jiu-jitsu, preferably off his back. Last submission, I was able to find tape on armbar off his back. So kind of an interesting thing against a wrestler. We are going to be talking a lot of overs tonight. I think we have fights that maybe the overs aren't priced correctly, and that could very well be one of them too. So let's move on here. Maybe you could make an argument, maybe the most lopsided fight on the card. We have this guy at minus 460 when we pulled it. I actually had Eduardo Maura closer to minus 590 when I last pulled odds from FanDuel Sportsbook. So she is getting steam here. We saw Maura on the Contender Series. Maddie and I donated all this season to the Contender Series. We're like bittersweet to see it go. Maura, I actually made money on. She got a first round submission. It actually didn't absorb a single significant strike. She dodged all 3 attempts and found one in 4 minutes. Insane peripherals coming in here. And then we last saw Montserrat Conejo on the Vicente Luque Rafael Dos Anjos card. She got bullied by Jacqueline Amorim, a fight that you could have arguably argued to be stopped in all 3 rounds. Maddie, we got women's MMA on tap. Usually that's
damage in that fight.
Yeah, she did. And like this is a pretty quick turnaround from then. That wasn't that long ago in August. And I usually lean in women's MMA toward the heavy underdog because you have no idea what you're going to get, especially at strawweight. You're usually looking at a decision. I'm going against my own principles here because Conejo looked small. I really wasn't a fan of what I saw. What did you think of her against Amorim and what we're looking at in this fight?
She got her ass whooped in that fight, bro. For 3 rounds. I mean, imagine taking that Amorim round 3 KO. Yep. That would have been juicy. I wish I was on that, but
that was a great example of our philosophy where you take the sub artist by KO because Amorim comes in with all these submissions, right? And she tried 4 submission attempts in that fight, failed all of them, and said, "Heck with it, I'm just gonna punch her face off and get her out of here." Yeah. No, I think Conejo's problem is she's just so small. She's only 5 foot. She looked very physically not strong in that fight with Amorim. Eduardo Maura, 5'6", looked like a monster on top. Like, I feel like they just don't really know what to do with Conejo Ruiz at this point. And Maura is this surging prospect, comes off the Contender Series, really looked more dominant than the minus 186 favorite than she was there. So I know this number is steep, but I'm hoping women's strawweight's historical tendencies get us good numbers on potential inside the distance props. I'm thinking like round 1 here. I'm serious.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. This chick has her last 4 fights. 3 of them have been round 1. One was round 2, halfway through the round. Do you like the sub here or the knockout though?
Very interesting. Conejo's sub defense has been good. In her first fight, she had that weird headlock fight with Cheyenne Vlismas, so she didn't really have any to defend, but she defended all 4 against Amarim, and some of those were in great positions. So I wonder though, Maura is just much longer than Amarim. She's got a 67-inch reach, might have more of an ability to snatch a neck. So I think I would lean submission, even though that is probably going to be the what I want to say, the more expensive price to pay, because like knockout will probably be longer for her.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think you're going to get a better price on the submission win here just because this chick did defend the submissions pretty well. And we saw Amarim, she couldn't submit Sam Hughes either. I remember because I was at that fight live. I bet Amarim by sub, and she had that submission. I don't know how Sam Hughes escaped it, but she couldn't finish it.
Yep.
And now we've seen that 2 fights in a row. So now we're starting to wonder, is this just more about her submission abilities? Maybe it's a size thing. I don't know
Great
what the
point.
deal is.
Great point.
And I think now you're going to get good value on the submission win here against this chick. So we'll see what the number is.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I, since it's women's strawweight, I'd love to get anything north of 3-1 on a first round submission there, because the way she's getting steamed, she might be like a minus 600, 700 favorite. But we saw with Josephine Knudsen earlier, you can still get some good inside props. But much better women's strawweight fight after that to follow. At least we've got a ranked fighter involved, or a formerly ranked fighter, I should say. Angela Overkill Hill, she's back off that beating against Mackenzie Dern in a main event earlier this year, taking on one of the division's kind of more interesting prospects, Denise Gomez here. Denise Gomez, kind of interesting. Knocks out Yasmin Haraguay in 20 seconds. You could say it was an early stoppage, but you really don't see fight-altering power like that a lot in this division. Angie's 38. She's a little long in the tooth. I've heard arguments on both sides of this one. Do you have a lean as we sit here on Wednesday?
I want to see what Gomez by decision would pay.
Yeah.
I mean, Angela Hill got her ass beat in that last fight. Outstruck 126-66 against Mackenzie Dern. But like, she can survive, right? She is durable, right? Has she even been
submitted twice in 23 UFC fights and never knocked out, which I think is an interesting prospect against Gomez with the heavy hands we've seen so far.
Right. Yeah, I would love to see what Gomez by submission would pay in this fight. I'm sorry, by decision would pay in this fight. That's kind of where I would lean and look to deploy some units on.
Yeah, I think this fight is just an indictment of how much does Angie have left in the tank, because we've seen her in this position before where they gave her Emily Ducote. She boxed Ducote up, down, sideways, had a plus 111 striking differential in that fight. Like, we've seen her turn back the prospect. And an interesting thing is Angie had a pretty dominant win over Loma Lookboonmee. Well, Loma Lookboonmee has a dominant win over D. Gomez. So Gomez got a knockout of a very unproven prospect in Bruno Brazil. Got the quick knockout against Hyargi that a lot of people said was a quick finish. I think if Angela Hill was maybe 35, 34, I didn't have to worry about any sort of precipitous decline. I'd be really inclined to buy her in this spot at this plus 108 number. I still think I will, because, like, you look at who Hill's fought. Amanda Lemos, Verna Jandiroba, never submitted, great submission defense, pretty solid, 61% striking defense, 76% takedown defense. Those are both 80th percentile or better in this division. So against ranked fighters, Angie's fighting pretty well. I think it's just totally a matter of if she's washed. And you're buying Gomez at the apex, but I love your angle of Gomez by decision, because Gomez has now had 2 inside the distance wins in a row. You don't really get Angie out of there very easily. I think that's the smart way to back D. Gomez in this spot.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm assuming the over is pretty heavily juiced here.
Let's see. Do we have shade? I'm not sure we have prelim overs on FanDuel yet. We're both taking a look here.
I'm curious on this one.
It's the middle of football season. Books are not going to be as quick to publish a lot of profits or totals or anything like that. I have over 2.5 at minus 270 at random unnamed sportsbook that I just pulled. So it is pretty heavily juiced. So I wonder if Gomez by points then will be the shortest implied outcome here. That'd be pretty interesting.
Right.
Most people looking at the
Yeah, same.
knockout coming off 2 in a row. So that next
Sure.
fight, certainly, I think we could be looking inside the distance. We got much bigger guys in here at light heavyweight. Vitor Petrino taking on Mattybetss Bukauskas. I don't know about you, Maddie. I can't think about Mattybetss Bukauskas without that gruesome leg injury he had against Khalil Roundtree. I've never seen a dude just push kick another dude's ligaments out of his knee. That was pretty violent to watch. But this guy, Vitor Petrino, he's the Brazilian here. He's going to be in the red corner. Got that big win over Marcin Petrosyan earlier this year in Canada. Like, Petrino's kind of an athletic monster for this division, and Bukauskas has been turning away these guys as an underdog, got the nod over Zach Pauga. So we've got a couple of multi-time UFC winners here, definitely stepping up the talent level. Petrino, pretty big favorite. Do you have a lean in this fight, or do you just like one of these guys in general?
Yeah, I do think the line is a little wide here, honestly.
Interesting.
Here's what I'll say. So I took Petrino in his last fight. You won't believe what I had. I did double chance,
Okay.
KO decision. And he
Okay.
submits Prochnow in the third round. I was at that fight live, bro, with my boys.
Yep.
I was sick over it because I saw it coming. I think it was an arm triangle, I think late in the third.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, just ride this out. You've won I think he won the first 2 rounds, I'm pretty sure. I was like, just ride this out, get the unanimous decision win. And then he finds that submission on the ground. I was like, I cannot believe it. I had him double chance KO decision just to kind of lower the juice a little bit.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting wrecked on it. But no, I like this guy. And I think this is Derek Brunson's guy, by the way. Derek manages him.
Really?
Yeah, so I've talked with Derek about him, and I like this guy, and he's a specimen, bro. Like, but I don't know. I do think he's a little heavier of a favorite than I would like him to be in this spot. I fear deep down that Mattybetss could kind of like stick and move in here in this fight. Like, and that's my biggest fear. But I mean, I think Petrino will get it done. I just wish he was a little bit cheaper here.
Yeah, for sure. And one of these chalk Brazilian favorites is going to die. We're going to try to figure out who it's going to be, but one of them is the whole heavy Brazilian favorite parlay is not going to hit, fellas. So like I wouldn't run up all these minus 500, minus 200, 250, 300 Brazilians and think they're just going to sweep across the board. I will say Petrino a little bit scary, just a 43% striking defense. He actually was dropped in his Contender Series fight against Rodolfo Bellato, who got a win on the Contender Series earlier this summer. So a little bit of a concern there. Now, I think it's a little bit lessened that Bukauskas' only win by knockout came against Andreas Michelitis, who is a middleweight, taking that fight on short notice. And it was kind of a bad stoppage to begin with. So no career knockdowns for Bukauskas, not a lot of power. So I think that stick and move diagnosis from you is appropriate. Where I think where Petrino loses this fight is he gets lulled into that kickboxing match, and I believe he loses it, right? The thing about it is Bukauskas, I love the matchmaking from UFC because last time Petrino just ran through Prachnio's takedown defense. Like you said, he took him down, he submitted him. It was actually hilarious. His corner in Portuguese was instructing him what to do because he was just so big and strong on top, but not in the right positions because he's still learning, he's still growing, he's still figuring out how to do things. So I don't know if he's going to be able to take Bukauskas down. Bukauskas 75% takedown defense. I just feel like at this point, I would not bet Bukauskas. I'd rather just pass on this fight altogether if I was truly afraid. But to me, this feels like bigger, better, stronger athlete finds a way to get it done in explosive fashion against a guy who we've seen Bukauskas get knocked out by Jimmy Crute. We saw the leg thing against Khalil Roundtree. And this is a big step up in competition for Bukauskas against Zach Pauga in his last fight. Tyson Pedro looking a little washed in that fight against Bukauskas. I think Petrino is a pretty big step up. So a little bit of a sketchy fight.
What would for you to bet this fight to go the distance?
Yeah.
What price would you need on that? Because I even would want to look at, like, I assume the over might be, I think the over is 1.5 or 2.5. I'm about to look it up, but I'm curious on an over in this fight because I don't know how easy it's going to be to get Mattybetss out of there early.
Interesting. I've got over 2.5 sitting on a unnamed sportsbook at plus 100. So about a 50-50 proposition. They're looking at over 2.5 rounds. I think that's a giant red flag that Matty, we talked about overs. Like, this is a step up for Petrino as well. Like, he was able to just bulldoze through Prachnio with his wrestling. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that here. Maybe he's just a lot bigger and stronger, is able to take him down. But his technique, it wasn't like impeccable technique. It took him 3. You said you were there, you were watching the fight, right? It took him 3 rounds to find a submission, be able to work into a dominant position. A lot of that fight was empty time and empty control time. So I think Petrino's still developing. I really like him. Like you said, like to me, this guy, he reminds me of Alex Pereira at 185. I don't know if he's going to be able to make 205 reliably or if he's a heavyweight long term, which is just a testament to how big and strong he is. But I like what I see so far. Was able to out wrestle Anton Turkai, was able to out wrestle Petrino. Maybe he's just a lot bigger and stronger than these dudes, and he's able to out wrestle Bukauskas too.
Yeah. And Modestas beat Tyson Pedro by decision.
Yeah.
I mean,
ugly. Pedro.
That's not a bad win.
Yeah. Pedro won the first round. Then visible exhaustion set in. Bukauskas does what he did. He's great at distance. Bukauskas, if he can keep it a kickboxing match, he can beat a lot of 205ers.
Right. Agreed.
So, intriguing. That definitely a red flag. We're trying to find the Brazilian upset. I think we'll stick a flag in that one and potentially come back and we'll see what we do here. But 100%. Peru versus Brazil in this next fight. A couple of Dana White Contender Series alums here as well. How about my guy Victor Hugo leaping off the Contender Series less than a month and a half notice here to step in? Daniel Marcos was originally supposed to fight Daniel Santos here, Charles Oliveira's guy, blonde hair, really exciting, got that big win last time out. Instead, now Marcos will take on Victor Hugo, and Marcos is a guy that at least I've got some questions about. He had that fight against Davy Grant that was very, very close. Judges ruled it in his favor in England, so he probably did win it, right? You think England would have probably leaned toward Davy if he didn't. But I've got my questions. I've got my concerns about both of these guys here. Do you have a favorite prospect of the two?
Yeah, I was impressed, honestly. I mean, it seems like people aren't very high on Daniel Marcos, but I was impressed by the Davy Grant win as someone that was on the opposite side and had Davy in that fight.
Yeah.
Daniel Marcos is kind of like a gamer. Like he just was able to figure it out and beat Davy. And I like Davy Grant. Like I think he's underrated. Like, his record's not the greatest, but like, I mean, he went the distance with Cheeto, went the distance with Adrian Yanez. Like, I think that, Davy's pretty solid. So I was actually more impressed than most people with that win. So I lean Daniel Marcos here. I'm not in love with the price tag though.
Yeah. I actually kind of lean the other way. And this is all speculation because Victor Hugo takes on Eduardo Torres Caught on the Contender Series. Yeah, I remember you told me you were on Torres Caught on the Contender Series that night. Yeah. I liked Hugo in that fight. I was very surprised that he took a grappling heavy approach because all of his tape showed a guy that was more of a striker, more of a knockout artist type of guy. Comes out of nowhere with his grappling. He's been lurking around the Brazilian regional scene a lot, like 28 pro fights. He's fought some really good regional guys down there. Like he comes in with more MMA experience than you would typically think for a guy making his official UFC debut here. Marcos did look great in that Grant fight, and that's like the hesitation that I have to like pull the trigger, want to bet the upset type of thing is because he did. And it only further validated he just beat the crap out of Simon Oliveira in his official UFC debut. So I'm kind of with you. I think the betting value here is with Hugo. Do I have a huge incentive to get to the window? Not really. I think if anything, I might target an over here because these guys have a lot of regional experience. Both of them shown pretty strong durability. Torres Caught's a big guy that was coming in there as a knockout threat. Victor Hugo showed no sort of wobbles or chin issues. So another fight where I like the over perhaps more than a particular side.
Yeah, I think Marcos by decision for me might make my card, depending on the number.
Yeah. Do you have a total on this guy yet? With some speculative totals here
right now here?
Interesting. Under 2.5 minus 135. Wow. So odds makers are going violence here.
Yeah, the over at plus money makes it almost has me like overthinking it now, but I think over.
I like the over too. Maybe we're both falling into the trap there, but both of these guys, Hugo especially, second round win on the Contender Series. Marcos got a big stoppage in his first. Davy Grant is a tough son of a bitch. He's hard to get out. Like I don't think Marcos is any less dangerous just because he wasn't able to get Davy out of there. We've seen Davy take insane punishment from guys like Jonathan Martinez. Remember Grant got the comeback behind win on Jonathan Martinez. So Marcos has already faced a really stiff competitor in UFC, I think you're paying the juice for that experience. But I
100%.
think that'll be a good one. I'm leaning toward this being my fight of the night when I go through my podcast on Friday. Just expecting a fight, go the distance, lots of activity. I think these guys can deliver. So, a good one too. A guy that I know you and I are both really high on. I bet you're excited to talk about this one, just like I am. Renat the Gladiator Fakhretdinov taking on Elijah Zaleski dos Santos. Easy DS, easy for me to say. The Brazilian here in the red corner. Fakhretdinov, I mean, just mowed through Kevin Lee in a spot where a lot of people were looking at Kevin to potentially pick up a UFC win in his return. He retired Kevin Lee. And he has pretty much fully dominated all three of his UFC fights so far at welterweight. Zaleski dos Santos coming off a split close decision over a Bubakar near Magomedov, but anytime you got that last name in there, pretty stiff opponent as well. Two really accomplished guys, Matty. Do you have a lean here with Fakhretdinov, a pretty heavy favorite?
Yeah, man. You know I'm so high on Fakhretdinov, man. I love this guy. But I do feel he's a little overvalued here just off of that Kevin Lee win.
Interesting.
He finished Kevin Lee so quickly, but you go back and look at his fights before that, decision win. Now, granted, that was Brian Battle. Brian Battle's a beast, so that's nothing. I'm not going to take anything from that, but he does go to the scorecards every couple of fights. He went to the scorecards back in 2022, unanimous decision win. I just don't know that he comes out and starches this guy or finishes him early the way that he was able to with Kevin Lee. So I'm a big Rinat Fakhretdinov fan. I think he can move up the rankings very quickly, but I think this will be a good test for him.
I do too. You remember the Zaleski dos Santos fight where he nearly beat Benoit Saint Denis' head off, and now that's a little weight class transition there because Benoit's a lightweight, so Zaleski had the size advantage there. But that's a really impressive
win still, though.
Yeah, over Benoit Saint Denis, who's a guy who may very well be a title contender next week if he can get the win over Matt Frevola. We'll talk about that.
Who do you like? I gotta ask who you like in that fight.
I lean Benoit as we sit here Wednesday, but don't hold me to that because I got research.
I just feel I'm so torn on that fight because I like Frevola. He actually follows me on Instagram. I think he's a guy you don't want to count out.
Me too.
He's that good.
We got to see the betting. I have no idea what the betting line is. If it's way in Benoit's favor, then I
think Benoit's -2 something, maybe.
Oh, that's absurd. That's absurd. That's like a minus.
It opened pretty wide. He was -3, and then it came down fast.
Yeah. I don't know about that. Speaking of wide here, I only 4 fights on this card that I was able to run my model for. Both of these guys have over 30 minutes of octagon time, so this one qualified, right? You said Fakhretdinov, you said he's a little overvalued, right? My model agrees. I've got him at -194. So sitting at -350, that's a pretty hefty price, even though I still feel pretty good about him.
I agree. Yeah, it's one of those fights where you're like, this guy's going to win. We think he's going to win, but you can't pay -350. So with that said, what do you if he were to win, what's the most likely outcome for you?
Zaleski dos Santos, good BJJ. I don't think he'd get caught in a submission. Surprisingly about Fakhretdinov, 2.02% knockdown rate so far. That's high. Just for context, that's higher than Derek Lewis. So that's the level of power he got a knockdown on Kevin Lee. He was able to get a knockdown on Brian Battle. Those guys are two really strong strikers in their own right that have knockout wins in UFC. So
I can get behind a TKO win here.
Yeah, I would not discount his power on the feet standing. And the thing about Zaleski dos Santos had that year off for a drug suspension. That is very punitive for these guys as they age over 35. That year hurts them more so than someone closer to their prime year 30.
Well, the Leech was able to knock him out in round 3. That was back in 2019.
Yeah. As we sit right this second,
here.
And I think we'll get a pretty distant number because Fakhretdinov has not scored a knockout in UFC yet. And typically, books are slow to respond with knockout props for knockdown rates. They really look at historical results more than they do.
Yeah, because they don't see the club and subs. They just see it as a sub.
Right. So, and
I mean, that should have been a knockout in his last fight. He starched Kevin Lee on the feet.
Right. So I have a stat that I can pull for your audience if you're interested. So
Let's hear it. I'd love to.
the ratio of knockdowns to knockouts in UFC, it's a very transitive, predictive quality. 1.48 knockdowns per knockout in UFC, meaning that it's pretty close to 1-to-1. A guy is getting knockdowns that should translate in their career to a knockout win, because you don't always get a knockdown. Sometimes it's a standing, a guy just shelling up against the fence. So you don't always get a knockdown, but those are translate to knockout wins over time mathematically. So I think we might get a juicy number on TKO, and I might convince you to take Renat anyway.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I got to know what this number.
How about this? I've got most.
Him inside the distance is -110.
Okay.
Let me see what the knockout is. +265 on the knockout.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang. I've got that. I've got
the same number. Same number on the submission. They're saying it's an equal chance.
Now you tell me if that's not a trap coming off a submission win.
Right.
I
mean, look, the KO to me is way more likely.
I've got KO at 24.7%, sub at 10.7. So I've got a far more likely outcome of a KO. I've got KO at +305. So while I'm not showing direct value on it, that would be the preferred bet of the two.
Right.
Yeah.
Now he does have 2 submission losses. Who they come to a long time ago, back in 2013, and
who's he? Zaleski?
Well, Fakhretdinov's never lost.
Oh, that's true. Good point.
Yeah, 22-2-0.
Did I have a fever dream? Did he fight the late
he did lose. I'm tripping. He lost in 2014 and 2013.
I vaguely remember this fight, but Zaleski actually knocked out Sean Strickland. I vaguely remember that fight. Sean actually did not do as well at welterweight as he does now at middleweight. He found his home at 185. His chin was too bad.
A round 1 spinning hook kick.
Sounds about right. Fakhretdinov's just so I don't think the spinning stuff is going to work against him. He's so fundamentally and technically excellent. Like his striking accuracy and defense marks are already in the 85th percentile or better in the division. Yeah. So we both like Fakhretdinov. We might be.
I like a Fakhretdinov double chance. KO decision. I like
nice. That. Yeah, I think that I'm leaning there too. So we will talk about this fight vaguely around it. We just got clarity on this today, so we apologize for the graphic. I don't want to blame the folks that were pulling this, because we thought Elvis Brenner was going to fight Esteban Ribovics. He's actually got Kuschik in there. Christian Kuschik. I don't know exactly how to say his name off the Contender Series. Ribovics out here on short notice, but Elvis Brenner, a guy that, man, we keep counting him out. He was a huge underdog against Zubaira Tukhugov. He was a huge underdog to Guram Kutate-Ladze. He keeps finding a way to rally and pull out these wins. Got a knockout in his last fight. Like, Brenner has quickly become a fan favorite with the silver hair, taking on a newcomer off the Contender Series. I think Brenner's hovering around -180 wherever you can find that information. Do you just have some general thoughts on Brenner and whether you think he's overvalued or undervalued from all the come from behind wins?
Yeah, I mean, he was -155 and he only jumped up to -180 on a short replacement guy.
Yeah,
coming off the Contender Series. Yeah, if anything, I think it's a better value spot to take him now than it was in his original matchup.
Yeah, I don't know if Kuschik was preparing for a fight, so this is an extremely short notice. Canyon, and I actually liked Kuschik's opponent on the Contender Series, Dylan Manatello. He's a guy that actually trains with Matt Frevola, who we were just talking about. Yeah. I really liked him coming from that camp with Frevola. Who's the other 55er? Sadim Nazikov. Said that Nazim Sadikov, I think. I'm sorry, I think I got the name wrong, but they have a good 155er camp. Kuschik ran through him, submitted him very quickly within the first 3 minutes. So I think, interestingly, maybe that number is shorter than we think, because Brenner really hasn't been tested by a really good submission guy yet. Tukhugov, more of a striker. Guram Kutate-Ladze, more of a striker wrestler guy. The jiu-jitsu element here could be interesting, even though Brenner does have 11 career wins by submission. He's 11-0 by submission, so I don't think he's a bum. I just think it's a little bit of an interesting dynamic on short notice.
For sure. No, I'm with you.
I wouldn't hold my breath this fight ends up making it to fight day. Whenever you get this weirdness coming in, it's like, who knows if we're even going to hit the scales right. So we'll move on. We don't have the right guy on the graphic, and we just got that fight today. So
No shit.
don't want to give you some bad information. But here's the feature prelim of the evening. Same weight class. A guy that we've seen a lot of, Vince from Hell Pichel, on the other side of a guy that really we had very high hopes for him. He ran into Benoit Saint Denis in his last fight. We were just talking about how much we love Saint Denis. So I don't think there are a ton of people selling Ishmael Bonfim stock either. Featured prelim in Brazil, minus 500 favorite. Maddie, can you make a tangible case for Vince Pichel here?
Oh man, I think he's gonna get knocked out, bro.
Yeah.
I like Bonfim by KO. It's funny though because with the Bonfim brothers both on this card, like who would you say is more likely to get upset?
I would go with Gabriel because his opponent is historically more durable in his prime. We'll get to Gabriel taking on Nicholas Dolby in the co-main, but like anytime you have a guy in his prime, like Pichel, when they send him out there at 40 years old, not very high expectations, I think, at this point.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And it sucks on this line because he's coming off a loss. You would think we would get a better price tag on him.
Yeah.
And he's literally minus 500, which is crazy. But
yeah,
I like him inside the distance. I still, that flying knee against Terrence McKinney was one of the best knockouts I've seen. I thought it was just perfectly set up and it was just insane right on the jaw and like the upper neck, and he was out cold. I mean, it was pretty impressive, and I'm not going to take anything away from him from losing the BSD there. So I think he gets a stand in TKO here in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think this is just going to be I'm so with you. I wonder if you and I are going to end up going round one here, because I will think of this stark adjustment for Vince Pichel. Takes on Mark Madsen, wrestler guy in his last fight. Jim Miller, old guy, more of a grappler. Roosevelt Roberts, not a huge KO hitter, more of a point fighter. Ismail Bonfim throws hammers, bro, and his chin hasn't been tested. I'm talking about Vince Pichel. His chin has not been tested in a while. This dude flattened Terrence McKinney, and McKinney is a soldier. He's not afraid of anybody. His defense is questionable. He put McKinney out and really dominated the whole fight before that finish as well. So, like,
McKinney had no answer on the feet, and that's pretty impressive.
And would you say he's a stronger striker than Vince Pichel? Because I don't even think it's close. Yeah. So, like, I think this is a prop up spot. You know, you see this in UFC sometime. I think we can take advantage that maybe coming off a loss, there's more trepidation. If he's coming off a win over maybe not Benoit Saint Denis, but just another average lightweight, we might have to pay minus 750 here. So there could be a discount baked in here.
Maybe, yeah. Do you think Vince can survive that first round, or do you think it's a round one?
Yeah. The interesting thing against I don't really know if Pichel has a path, because he's got a 23% takedown defense. So if his best case scenario is getting absolutely mauled in the wrestling, like we've seen Gregor Gillespie submit him, we saw him taken down and slammed on his head in his UFC debut a long time ago. Like it's not hard to see things going wrong for him, no matter what Bonfim's strategy is. So, like, I can't give you Vince Pichel, historically tough guy, like pretty durable overall, but like 40 years old in enemy territory. It's like, do I want to talk myself into potential value here on that? I think this is the one place where I think the chalk is wholly appropriate.
Yeah, Bonfim by KOs plus 200, by decisions plus 190, and by submissions plus 500. That's interesting. The decision is more likely to happen.
Then the submission?
Both. The decisions plus 190, the KOs plus 200, and the submissions plus 500.
So we're getting a really good price on inside the distance, is what you're telling me, because like I think if anyone's got a decision path here, it's probably Pichel, because that means Bonfim has either gassed himself out. Vince does have pretty good offensive wrestling, 54% takedown accuracy. We saw him control Jim Miller that way, but like,
I mean, this is crazy. Maybe this site's messed up, because listen to this. Inside the distance is minus 400. And then the KOs plus 200 and the submissions plus 500.
I think if you put just $100 on each of the props there, you're getting a better effective price than if you just laid minus 400
Yeah.
inside the distance. Sometimes you see
I
sites
think
broken
that
like that.
KO props a hammer spot at 2-1. I
I
think
like the KO too. Fight starts on the feet. I think he can win it anywhere. KOs are more fun than submissions, so I think he's going to take his head off. Frankly, in the first round, that's my assessment. And it's
Yeah.
like you want to overthink this, but also remember Ikram Aliskerov. We were both like, this fight's going to start on the feet. He's got an advantage everywhere over Warley Alves. We took the round 1 KO. It hit, right? So like you don't always have to overthink these spots.
Agreed. Now, Pichel did get submitted in 2018, and he hadn't been knocked out since 2012. So I guess that's a big
I
part
think
of the numbers.
you're a
But he
DFS
hasn't
guy.
really he hasn't fought KO guys like you said. So
Yeah, I will be interested if some DFS sites like hang under 1.5 takedowns on Bonfim. I would take the under there because he's got a 26% accuracy, doesn't really try very often. I think that the knockout is a good spot. So if like you get a takedown prop in like a DFS setting, I like the under in this fight because I think Pichel's poor historical wrestling tendencies, I don't even think Bonfim's going to need to go there. So I think you could get a really great line on that type of setting. I just wanted to mention
that's
that.
interesting. I want to see what I can look right now. Oh, they don't even have a takedown on the board. They have the 11-minute fight time and then 52.5 significant strikes for Bonfim.
52.5. Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you say 11-minute fight time?
Yeah.
Hammer the under. Hammer the under. That's the first 2 rounds.
Yeah. That's crazy. All right, let's move on. But no, I love that.
Yeah, so let's move on to the main card. Really interesting main card. Some ranked matchups, some not ranked matchups here. You and I previewed to you. We try not to talk very much before the show because we don't want to infest each other's ideas. We want to have this genuine conversation in real time. I love this matchmaking. Like I get on UFC matchmakers a lot. This is perfect matchmaking. It's basically a near pick 'em. I've got a little juice in Petrosyan's direction now live, but this is going to move all week back and forth because you have two smart sides on both sides here. The grappler, Rodolfo Vieira, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, the striker, Armin Petrosyan. He's already gotten big wins over like Chris Leroy Duncan, Gregory Rodriguez. Like he's already got so many nice feathers in his cap as a striker. It really is just which one of these guys is going to have more success in their area. Do you have a lean in this fight between two really solid middleweights?
Yeah, I like Petrosyan by decision. I just think he's gonna be able to piece him up on the feet, and he hasn't shown. I mean, Kijo couldn't submit him.
Yep.
You know, I think that he's just. I think he's gonna be levels above on the feet, and I'm gonna trust. I just see that as a more likely outcome than getting taken down and submitted. But I think it's like I think you can get that like plus 260, plus 270, and he's not dangerous either. So I just love that play. Maybe he could finish him late, but I think Armin by decision makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, I've been able to run my model for this fight because these guys have enough fight time to qualify. Absolutely hilarious, by the way. I don't see this very often. It gives Petrosyan 100% chance to be the better striker. It gives Vieira the 100% chance to be the better wrestler and grappler because you look at Petrosyan, 36% takedown defense. Kijo was able to control him for over 10 minutes in that fight. It's really funny. And then, I've got other things like age, level of competition, which actually interestingly swings in Vieira's direction. If you remember, he fought Chris Curtis. I was about to say Cody Brundage's name like it meant anything, and it doesn't. So he was dropped by Brundage. So if you like Petrosyan, the argument for Petrosyan is like Vieira just got dropped by Brundage, and this guy's a heck of a lot better striker than Cody Brundage is. I like Vieira, and there's a very one specific reason why is because Petrosyan just a 0.26% knockdown rate so far, hasn't shown a lot of power. I don't think he's going to be able to keep Vieira off of him for 15 minutes if he doesn't have the power to put him out. So I may end up playing Vieira's money line here and then hedging it with Petrosyan round 1, round 2 KO because if Vieira's having his way in the first and second round, he's probably going to sap the power anyway. So that might be how I approach
You're not scared you can lose both those on just a Petrosyan decision?
Vieira decision would probably be the more risky thing because Armin wasn't submitted by Kijo. He actually hasn't shown any sort of submission defense weaknesses thus far. So I think Vieira by decision would be the most likely outcome of how I see that fight not playing out. Like Vieira could get an early sub in my head. He could just rack up control time similar to Kijo. So I don't think I am concerned about a Petrosyan decision. Because Vieira would have to really, really badly fail like no one else has with Petrosyan's takedown defense thus far.
I bet you Vieira decision would pay big.
Yeah, and that's actually what my model is recommending most. I've got Vieira decision at let me crunch some numbers here. 30.2%. So I've got it at like plus 231. I would bet a lot of
Plus
money.
450 right now.
Yeah.
Plus 450.
That's the lean on my model, and the reason for that is because of Petrosyan's submission defense. Like it's really hard to profile Vieira for a sub when he's very good at it, but Petrosyan's shown really great defense too. So I see this fight similar. I think Vieira's better version of Kijo at this point. Now he's older, so it's not going to stay that way forever. But like, do you agree with that, or do you think Kijo is a better grappler than Vieira at this stage?
I mean, I think Vieira is probably the better finisher. It's hard to say, but I think Kijo is definitely far better all around.
Right, because Kijo's a better striker, way better striker. Vieira's very robotic with his striking. He can't really do it at a high level. Yeah. So, and we've seen some Vieira cardio issues, like against Fluffy Hernandez. Fluffy Hernandez was able to stop the takedowns, ended up finding a submission himself. So, and that, by the way, that's another reason why the level of competition would lean toward Rodolfo's, because Fluffy's a guy that ranks really well in my model right now. He's not a lot of middleweights.
I am so high on that dude. Like Fluffy is a beast, bro.
Yeah, well, I mean, he submitted a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion multi times over, so that's pretty impressive.
You're really starting to sell me here because, like I said, you nailed it. The one concern is that round one against Brundage.
Yeah,
that really is the one concern here. Like,
believe it or not, Cody a higher knockdown rate than Petrosyan. I feel like Cody's got power.
Losing to Chris Curtis, like Chris Curtis doesn't really get taken down by anyone. And you only got outstruck 109 to 86. It's not the end of the world against Chris Curtis. And then the Fluffy Hernandez fight, and it looks like his cardio's improved since then too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is an interesting. I don't think that there's a wrong side in this fight. I think it's lined 100% appropriately by odds makers because it's quite literally: is Petrosyan going to be able to stuff the takedowns, or is he going to be able to knock out Vieira as well? Keep him off of him and get him out of there faster. I think those are both legitimate arguments given the fragility we've seen from Rodolfo. It's a great fight. Lined appropriately. My model has Vieira at minus 135. So like we're all in the same ballpark here. I don't see a huge betting value, but I can't wait to see which side wins out.
100%. I'm with
you. Good fight to open the main card. And then, hey, look who it is. We were just talking about Caio Barrihlo. He's back here at middleweight. A guy that not only is having a lot of success in his own right, but his Fighting Nerds camp in Brazil is putting a lot of UFC talent into the promotion as well through the Contender Series. So he's almost kind of leading the charge through that camp with his impressive performance. And then we have a guy coming out of a main event. As weird and shammy as it kind of was, Abus Magomedov, last time we saw him, took the first round off the champion in this division and then totally gassed out in the second, ended up getting finished. So samples don't get much weirder than Abus Magomedov's entering this fight, but it's a high-level one. It's on short notice here, worth mentioning. So Magomedov stepping in on short notice. Matty, do you have a specific lean in this guy?
What do you think this line would be if Magomedov never fought Sean Strickland? A pick 'em?
Yes, I do think it'd be much closer to a pick 'em because the way he faded against Strickland, people assume his cardio is just trash.
I know, and honestly, I like Caio a lot, but like this is a really wide line.
Agreed.
Like Magomedov is super dangerous in round one. The only reason I can make a case for Caio here is like we saw in the Mikhail Olazechuk fight, like he was able to like. Who would you take would you take Magomedov versus Mikhail?
Interesting stylistic matchup. Abus has had a pretty good chin. Like that was more so exhaustion against Sean. Like,
yeah,
it's such a different matchup. Like there couldn't be Caio is about one of the worst matchups you could give Mikhail because of his issues defending takedowns and submission attempts, So like it's a weird matchup. I think both of these guys probably get through Michal because they can wrestle and grapple, but like Michal's also a killer in his own right. It wouldn't surprise
Are
me if he
you
got a
confident on Magomedov's defensive grappling here?
I was actually going to bring another thing. Not only do I believe, yes, it could be pretty good. He's never defended a UFC takedown, so we don't know really at this level. He's
Sure.
actually been regionally at in PFL, so we've seen him kind of. I will say the Sean Strickland fight was a bit surprising because he didn't really show a lot of cardio issues with other promotions. He actually did show some wrestling and grappling defense and acumen. He took down Strickland, which is a really hard thing to do. Sean has really good takedown defense, so I think Abus is pretty well rounded. To be honest, that's my prior
Yeah.
evaluation on. What about you?
It's hard for me not to like him as a dog here in this spot.
Feels
Just
why.
based off of the number. Just literally the number. Like if he was a plus 130 dog, I would probably pass on it. But
Yep.
based off of how wide this number is, it's hard for me to not like him here. It really is. Like, are we so sure that his cardio is bad? Like, he's just
No.
never fought someone like Sean Strickland who is just nonstop in your face. And like Magomedov tried to get him out of there that first round. And honestly, that first round, I mean, that first round, like maybe he could have got him out of there. Like when Sean fought Izzy, Izzy didn't have any danger for Sean in that first round, but Sean is like Magomedov is dangerous in that first round. Like I wonder what a round 1 KO would pay here, honestly.
Yeah, he was, and I think an interesting fight that we kind of swept under the rug. The Kaio's best performances have come against guys that are notoriously terrible grapplers. Michal Olechechuk is on that list. Armen Petrosyan, we just talked about his takedown defense issues. Omar Gadjiv, your guess is as good as mine on his takedown defense long term. And then Jesse Murray on the Contender Series didn't really defend anything. Now I will say, I actually think Kaio has the highest
Oh
level
my
win of
God,
the
bro.
two. Aaron
I hate
Jeffrey, top. What'd you say?
I gotta interrupt you here. So
Yeah.
I literally just made a case for Abus Magomedov, and now I'm looking at these odds. Kaio by KO is plus 500.
I
If you believe the exhaustion and the cardio is a real flaw and thing here, and on short notice, and you believe in his defensive grappling, there's crazy value on Kaio to get like a ground and pound here, or like similar to what Sean Strickland was able to do, where he just gets a TKO in that second or third round. That's a big number to me. But I'm looking also in round 1.
yeah.
Magomedov in round 1 is plus 450. In round 1 by KO is plus 525 if you like him early.
I see this fight going the full distance, to be honest with you, because Barrihlo's been so patient with some of his guys. Now, Olechechuk, he had some pretty sizable advantages over, but the thing I would warn you about Kaio with by KO, really abnormally low significant strike volume, like outlierishly so. 4.24 significant strikes attempted per minute, bottom 15th percentile in this division. So he just doesn't punch a lot. And like that is something to know if you're going to bet. We talk all the time about the value of betting sub guys by KO. To me, they have to be like Raul Rosas, where we've seen some willingness to ground and pound. We've seen some willingness to throw his hands. Kaio very submission oriented, and he's not alone in that. Rodolfo Vieira, who we just talked about, not a lot of significant strike volume. So those guys almost always try to wrap up chokes instead of go for ground and pound. I think it's an important tendency. I like this fight to go the distance, even though, which will probably pay insane odds given the idea that Abus has a round and a half of cardio. But like the thing about fighting Sean Strickland, that pace is enormous. It is so different than any other middleweight. Sean Strickland on my spreadsheet looks like a bantamweight. It is just crazy how much volume he puts out there.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
what
all
I'm saying. We're not really sure that, like, again, you even said it. Magomedov hasn't shown he's had bad cardio outside of that fight, so it could just be Sean Strickland's pace at the end of the day. Which I'm like I said, I think Magomedov is the value play here, but
yeah,
I just think that if there's any chance his cardio is bad, like a round 2, 3 ground and pound, I think could be live for Kaio here, and that's going to pay big. It's going to be 13-1 round 2, 18-1 round 3. And he has 4 finishes by knockout, by KO, TKO, and 4 finishes by submission in his career. So it's 50-50.
On your card, I see you take things all the time with both fighters having an outcome. Like you had Yanez, Martinez, both of those guys round 2, 3 later. Would this be a situation where you're thinking maybe I take Magomedov early and then I take Kaio later?
Yeah, and then it goes the distance, and I lose all 4. But, yeah, I would say Abus round 1, 2 KO, Kaio round 2, 3, maybe just in round 2, 3,
Yeah,
we get both options, but I just think that if you're gonna take Kaio, you like you said, the distance or
yeah.
I think the late TKOs, I think are live.
I'm gonna throw one more fight reference in here because I love to do like fight comparisons. Remember when Mateusz Gamrot stepped up against Jalen Turner on like a couple weeks' notice, and we're like, "What the heck is this guy doing? He's just coming off this loss to Benny Dariush.
Yeah.
Like, what is he doing?" And he ended up realizing I can take this guy down and I can handle him. Abu stepped up to this fight, and not a lot of guys want to fight Kyle. I think he thinks he can beat him.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you
Yeah.
here. This
So
is tough for me. I'm gonna have to work on this fight here the next couple of days, but
yeah,
I'm with
great
you. I
fight.
mean, for him to take this fight last minute, it's kind of like a prove it thing. Like, oh, that Sean Strickland fight was fluke. I kind of overextended myself in that first round trying to get him out, and then didn't realize this guy's pace is for real. And I think now he's like, this is a prove it scenario where, and
I
it's
think
a
so
great
too.
value spot. You're getting this guy way better than he would have been if he's fighting him right before Sean. So I mean,
People were talking Abu's short dog in that Sean Strickland fight. People were talking about him as a title contender before that fight. I won't be gaslit into remembering otherwise. People were
yeah,
really high on Abus, and then he kind of he did. He spammed kicks. I saw it in our chat, Matty. He said he spammed kicks. I think Kaio grappling actually helps him use his energy in a more conservative way. Like he did spam a lot of spinning kicks in that first round. So
right.
great fight. So we move on from that excellent high level fight to whatever the heck this is at heavyweight. The rematch nobody asked for. We've already seen this post COVID break, but I guess we're running it back. Rodrigo Nascimento now in Brazil. He's already beaten Dontel Mays by second round submission. Dontel, close trading partner of John. I actually think he was the guy that hurt John in that video.
Was it really?
I think Dontel was the guy that was sparring with him and had a whizzer in that fight. I'm pretty sure.
Oh
So,
shit, I didn't
um,
notice that.
yeah, these guys are training partners. So like you assume Dontel's probably getting a lot better. I've always liked his physical tools, but Nascimento got through him, was able to exploit his submission defense, his grappling defense. That's why he's a pretty heavy favorite here. Do you have a specific lean one way or another here? Because I see this as a spot where Nascimento opened like minus 150-ish. Boom, Sharps absolutely blew this line off the roof. I don't have a lot of reasons why I think it'll be much different. Do you?
No, I don't either, honestly. That Chris Dawkins loss though.
Dawkins
That
Dawkins is really good unless he gets chinned. And it's just a
yeah,
weird fighter. He's a weird guy.
yeah. No, this I have no idea what to do with this fight, truthfully. I got
Yeah.
burnt on Dontel May's last fight because I had the over. And I really thought that one was going the distance, and then
Right.
he finishes Andre Arlovsky. So I ended up getting burnt in that fight. But man, I don't ever know what to do with the Dontel Mays fight. I'm just being
Right.
honest.
He was kind of losing that fight against Andre Arlovsky. He lost the first round in that fight, which like if you're losing around Andre Arlovsky, like Mays has been training with Johns a while. This is not a new development, and he's just kind of. I remember I was on him in the Augusto Sakai fight. Really bad, really ugly. Never really mounted much offense. Was losing to Arlovsky before landing that knockout blow on a 45-year-old, basically at this point. Nascimento is not perfect. I think he's shown some chin vulnerabilities, but Mays is also not a guy that's put out a lot of prime heavyweights. Like Dontel Mays lost to Roque Martinez, regardless of what the scorecards said. Roque was terrible. So I don't know. I don't see it. I think Nascimento can be pretty efficient with his wrestling again. Dontel Mays just a 56% takedown defense. Like Nascimento took him down, submitted him in the first fight. We haven't really seen those issues cleaned up at all. So like I don't know why I would expect anything different here. Maybe they think Mays has kind of grown or changed as he's been training with John now full time at heavyweight, but I don't see it. I truly don't.
Yeah. Do you think this one could go the distance though?
Yeah, interesting. So I have modeled this guy. We got enough fight time on it, and I was texting you about like surprise overs. I imagine this one is a heavy favorite to not go the distance because it's heavyweight, and the first fight ended by inside the distance. Yeah, over 1.5 is minus 215. So we don't even have a 2.5 round line on this fight. It's not expected to go the distance, but my model thinks it goes the distance 64.75% of the time.
Yeah,
So
I'm seeing plus 130 to go the distance.
Woo!
I
I
almost like
like that.
Rodrigo by decision
Love it.
plus 250.
Wow, that's a pretty wide line for a guy that is favored, and I would say Rodrigo also is analytically the stronger striker. It's about dead even when you model these guys out like 51-49. But
Interesting.
a much better wrestler, much better grappler. Could see him spending a lot of this fight on top, but maybe training with John, maybe Mays' submission defense is better than it was 3 years ago. Like the fight didn't happen a long time ago. It was post COVID break, so we saw it fairly recently. So
That's true.
we'll move forward here. Co-main event time. We already talked about Ishmael Bonfim. Here is big bro, or I guess little bro. I'm sorry, he's younger. He's bigger, but he's younger. Gabriel Bonfim
He's
taking
an
on
animal, man.
Danish Dynamite, Nicholas Dolby. I think they are sending my boy Danish Dynamite to die in Brazil. That's what the betting line says. Talk to me about Gabriel Bonfim because this guy's mowed through 3 pretty good guys in the first round. I don't really want any piece of putting my money against him, but do you?
No, man, and the odds makers don't want anyone betting him
Yeah.
because Nicholas Dolby is no scrub, bro. 22-4 in MMA, like 3 fight winning streak. I know they're all by decisions, but then you look back and if you lose to Tim Means in 2021, like you're not beating Gabriel Bonfim. That's the problem here. Like this dude is just a monster. I think he would maul Tim Means in the first 2 minutes.
Me too.
I don't, and this is just like, how would you even bet this fight? Like, 'cause honestly, it's like you almost want to take like a round 2-3 finish just on the numbers because it's like Dolby's pretty durable.
So
I mean,
we might be more well equipped than other shows to do this because we look from a value perspective more so than like a fight analysis perspective. How about
yeah.
3 straight first round submissions for Bonfim? So if we're willing to sweat that first round, and Dolby is a guy that has only been finished once in UFC, Jesse Ronson knocked him out. If we're willing
It
to
was
sweat
overturned. I think it was an overturn.
yeah, Ronson failed the drug
Rear
test.
naked choke or something.
Yeah, Ronson failed the drug test, but like he got planted, got finished in that fight, but then Ronson was popped for PEDs. Like, if we're willing to sweat that first 5 minutes, Bonfim round 1's going to be juiced to the gills. Submission is going to be juiced to the gills, and I will say that I find Nicholas Dolby's submission defense to be pretty strong. He's got a pretty strong takedown defense on paper, given that's how almost everyone tries to approach him. It's 62%, which isn't bad. Like, I think if we're willing to sweat this first round, those numbers will pay handsomely because round 1 is going to be juiced to the gills here.
Well, Bonfim in round 1's only plus 115. I thought it was going to be minus.
Yeah, I would have thought minus as well, but that almost kind of tells us something, right?
But are we gonna see his first KO in the UFC? Because he's got 3 straight submissions, and like you said, you're pretty high on Dolby's submission defense here.
Yeah,
I mean, he has 3 knockout wins in his MMA career and 12 submission wins.
Yeah, like the difference between a guy like Gabriel Bonfim and a guy like Caio Barrihlo, over 16 significant strike attempts per minute thus far. So he's using his hands. He's just arrived on the submission. So that's the difference between a guy like Caio and a guy like Gabriel to me, where I think he's very live for a knockout based on the volume that he's throwing out with his hands. He's willing to use them not only in the clinch, but at distance. Like, I don't think there's anywhere in this fight he's going to fear Dolby. And by the way, Dolby's 38. So a little bit long in the tooth, like we talked about with Angela Hill earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Marcus and I come in.
I want to go back and watch some footage on this one and look at the fight a little bit more. But honestly, I'm kind of leaning like I think if like a round 1 TKO is going to be like almost 5-1 odds. That's a great number on a guy that's a minus 600 favorite. So, I could see like we see it all the time where guys, only have a few fights in the UFC and they've won the same way every time and they want to show their hands.
Yep.
Like we saw the Bo Nickel fight.
Yep. The Rosas fight was there.
The Rosas Jr. fight. So I'm kind of getting a little flashbacks and deja vu here. I think Gabriel Bonfim by KO round 1's gonna hit my card.
Yeah, we've seen more chin vulnerability from Dolby as well. I mentioned he was dropped by Ronson. I'm pretty sure. I think Daniel Rodriguez got him as well, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly.
He won that fight by decision.
Zach Cummings, Darren Till, also, by the way, Darren Till dropped him as well at welterweight. So we've seen a bit of a shaky chin in the past. It's not like Dolby's been ironclad like Some of those chins we see out there that you don't want to target knockouts against because it's
Yeah.
just not going to happen. Benoit Saint Denis, don't target a knockout against him. It ain't going to happen. That guy's chin is made of granite. I don't think Dolby's got that type of chin. So
No, I'm with
we
you.
don't have a lot of drama. Like, we don't have a lot of drama in the co-main event. We both love Gabriel Bonfim. I don't know how much drama we're going to have here. You and I were talking about this a little, so we've got some conversation around it. I think you'd still agree with me, though, that Jailton Almeida is favored here for a reason. But, like, Mr. Speed Demon, Derek Lewis, busted for driving 136 and a 50 last week in Houston. Now he's going to fly to Sao Paulo, get some of that aggression out in a different way here. Derek, I was on Derek Lewis by first round knockout in that Marcos Rogério de Lima fight. I did not think it was going to come via flying knee turned into pants off. But what can you say about the Black Beast at this point, man?
I'm so torn. Torn on this fight because Almeida's not really a true heavyweight either.
True.
You know, and like a part of me wonders, like, look, I don't think any of us are gonna be surprised if he gets a takedown in 30 seconds and submits Derek Lewis within the first 2-3 minutes. Like, we're not gonna be surprised if that happens. But what if Derek Lewis catches him coming in? What if Derek Lewis can just use his size and strength and you know, fight on the feet here a little bit, and then it gets interesting. Yep. I told you, and I was texting you this, I have no data, I have no logic behind this, but my gut is telling me fight to start round 2. I believe it's going to be around plus 220. And don't get me wrong, you have to be a complete lunatic and degenerate to tail this. You have to have balls of steel. But I think this fight's going to get to the second round, and it's over plus 200 odds to do that. And I have no reason why I like it. Outside of the fact that what I texted you is, and I know this contradicts what Almeida was just able to do against Jorginho Rosenstrike, because I'm pretty sure he shot a takedown in the first 10 seconds, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So my only theory on this fight is that we've seen Derek Lewis catch people coming in like that. And I'm wondering, does Almeida keep it on the feet for a couple minutes here? And then we've seen Derek, outside of his last fight, we've seen a patient Derek Lewis.
Right.
Like, this guy has gone to the distance sometimes, and he hasn't just marched forward like he did in that crazy flying knee. So my only theory here is, what happens if this is on the feet for like 2 minutes and then he gets a late takedown in round 1 where he's not able to get him out of there?
Yeah.
And I was just looking at this from a pure numbers standpoint. I think, you know, it's like plus 270 over 1.5, plus 280. So I think just the fight to get to the second round is going to be around plus 200 or so.
Yeah.
I know you said there's no chance of this happening, so tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, so I'll say this, as I've really sat and I've marinated on it. There is, you look at Jailton Almeida's level of competition. Rosenstrike can't grapple at all. Shamil Abdurakhimov, Anton Turkai is a light heavyweight that he couldn't even stay on UFC's roster. Parker Porter, Danilo Marquez. Like, these are not great wins. And I think it's within the range of outcomes here that Almeida is wildly overinflated here. And really what his ceiling in UFC could be, hear me out on this, is maybe just a younger, more athletic version of Alexei Oleinik. You know, the submission artist, the boa constrictor, you know who I'm talking about? The guy who's basically 50 fighting at this point.
The guy that I think I've won countless times on by submission.
Right. And it's like, we don't know what Almeida's striking looks like. So far, 25% striking defense on paper is frighteningly low against Derek Lewis. We saw Derek land a perfect uppercut on Curtis Blades, knocked him out cold. We've seen him throw knees. We saw a knee against Marcos Rogério de Lima. So, like, would I be totally stunned here by a Derek Lewis first round, second round knockout? Not really. And you think back to when Lewis fought Oleinik, that fight started the second round because Alexei was in great position for a submission. But the thing about Derek, he's so physically strong that sometimes he doesn't have to play by the rules of BJJ. He can just simply explode out of a choke. As long as his energy is there, he can do that. So, like, Matty, I don't actually think you're crazy. I don't think you're crazy. I think there is a path to this fight shockingly starting round 2.
Yeah, so the only thing that concerns me, and we were texting about this, is that Sergey Spivak fight, right?
Yeah.
And I know Jailton Almeida looks like the real deal, and his grappling and wrestling looks off the charts. But are we ready to say that he's far superior grappling and submission abilities than Sergey Spivak? Like, are
Sub-
you ready to just say
submission.
definitively he does? Because I mean, Sergey Spivak, I think it was like an arm triangle he put Derek Lewis in. It was a few minutes into the first round.
Yeah.
I don't remember how quickly he got the takedown, but one thing I will say is Almeida shoots like double legs, whereas Spivak will kind of get you in the clinch and do those trips and sweeps and all sorts
Yep.
of shit.
Yep.
And I just think that stuff traditionally is going to work better against Derek Lewis than I think you got. I think if you're Almeida, you have to be scared shooting an aggressive double leg against Derek Lewis. Or you have to at least think twice about it. So I'll be interested to see how early he shoots a takedown, or how, if he even shoots like a double leg or traditional takedown, versus like trying to kind of just grapple with him and figure out a way to get him to the ground versus like aggressively just shoot it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I was just going to add, I don't think that we can say that Almeida's takedown arsenal is not nearly as good as Sergey Spivak. I think Spivak might be the best takedown guy in UFC based on like his judo throws, his trips, his double legs. Like he's got the complete kit. Like you said, we've seen very basic ones from Almeida so far. And Derek's been around the block. He could probably stuff a double leg, like you were telling me via text, right? I don't think that it's that strong. What I will say is that if Almeida gets Lewis on the ground, things could be over very, very quickly. That's the concern, just because of how good Gilton's BJJ is. He could get him in. He could honestly get him in a standing guillotine. Would not surprise me if he like pulled guard on Derek Lewis. Like there are a lot of different ways I think he could get Derek to the ground because he's just so much better there. But especially as you look at context to the rest of this card, I don't see a path to victory for Nicholas Dolby. I don't see one for Montserrat Conejo. I don't see one for Vince Pichel. It's very obvious for Derek Lewis, guy with bad striking defense who's a natural light heavyweight, and Derek Lewis throws bombs. So like he's got a path to victory if you're interested in putting
And
money.
I'm assuming you've seen the footage of Almeida getting knocked out years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, and this is not a guy that was a super highly thought of prospect before he got to UFC. Almeida kind of surprised a lot of people in that the Danilo Marquez fight. He was only like a minus 200 favorite over a guy that was a total washout in UFC.
Man, I'm so torn here. Part of me wants to just bet Derek Lewis by KO.
I think whatever I do, hedging with Derek Lewis first round knockout, because if it's plus 360, first round knockout is probably what? Plus 400, 425, something along those lines.
Yeah, I want to see what Derek Lewis round one is real quick. If I can find it.
Certainly can leave out the submission. I'll tell you. Derek Lewis by submission probably
Plus 550 in round one.
Not a perfect hedge piece, like perfect hedge piece to whatever you want to do here. And I don't
Oh
really
my god, plus 1400 round two.
Maddie's on Derek Lewis, everybody.
No,
those are good numbers.
None of these are official.
Yeah. Those are really good numbers for a guy that has a very clear, like, it should not surprise any of you. Do not be surprised whatsoever if Derek Lewis ends up getting a knockout in this fight, because it's the writing's all over the wall analytically. So we gotta come together, Maddie. We gotta craft a parlay, because
we lost last week on the parlay.
I thought we were even, bro. I thought it was done. I thought it was over with, because like we had who do we have in that fight? Cedric Dumas ended up getting the decision. We had Ikram Aliskerov. We had Saeed Nurmagomedov. All we needed was Hamzat inside the distance. He's on top of Kamaru. 10-8 first round. Nearly finishes him. Nearly sinks in that choke. Our parlay. We had the right read. We had everything in place, and it just fell short at the very end. So
we're about to smack one here. So
I agree.
Can we agree on Gabriel Bonfim inside the distance is one?
Yep.
All right. So
why don't we take both Bonfims inside the distance?
Let's come back to the second one. Let's come back to that one.
He's taking on Vince Pichel. I feel better about Ishmael than Gabriel, to be honest with you.
Let me see. All right, Bonfim inside the distance. Oh, Gabriel's minus 285 inside the distance. That's leg one.
Yep.
All right. And then leg 2. So you want Ismail inside the distance too?
Unless you said it was minus 400 or something, right? So like, what's even the point?
Yeah, let's just skip that one.
Do you have a Maura inside the distance prop yet? Eduardo Maura?
Let me check. I wish these were up on FanDuel.
Me too.
While I'm looking that one up, any other legs you like?
I'm kind of checking through. You and I actually had a little bit less unanimous agreement than I thought.
Minus 145 on her inside the distance.
Yeah, I love that as a parlay piece. I can't see her not finishing Montserrat.
All right. Let's do at least one more leg.
I think Renat's overpriced, but like I wouldn't mind him as a parlay piece. Minus, I've got
We should get greedy because we got to make a comeback. We should take him by KO.
Renat
Yeah.
by KO. What's that pay?
It pays inside the distance minus 110, by KO plus 265.
Yeah, you and I were talking about KO decision there for Renat.
Yeah. I'm down to go to KO. I think he knocks him out.
Dude, oh my gosh. Yeah,
We don't have to.
But the thing is, we're gonna have to throw something like that in if we're gonna make it.
Let's do it, bro. Just 3 legs here.
Okay. All right. We at some point we're gonna have to hit one of these distance ones to get back in the green, and I feel so good about that with his knockdown rate.
Yeah, I'm typing this in the parlay, so we're gonna see what it pays.
After you get done there, if you want to put Samuel's comments up, he had a question about the Victor Hugo Daniel Marcos fight. I could go over my thoughts real quick on it. Maddie likes I like Daniel Marcos as a prospect too. I think you said in your next comment, I thought it was mispriced for sure. I think the value in there is a little bit of value on Victor Hugo. I think the better bet there, we were surprised the over 2.5 was coming back at like plus 100. I think that's the best bet in the fight. I love that fight to go toward the decision. That would lean toward betting value on Hugo. A little bit more regional experience, but I think the over is the best look in that fight for sure.
I like it. So we're putting the parlay in.
What did it come out
to? Plus 733.
Oh my! So I mean, we're back in the green.
All it takes is one, baby.
Yeah, I will say RZ or Zaleski dos Santos submission defense is very, very good. So the knockout is a great call if we like Renat inside the distance. I really do like Renat inside the distance, man. That guy's got underrated sneaky power. So
here we go.
Pay 733.
All right, there it is, boys and girls. The Renat is by KO at the end. It's not on it's Renat by KO. So Gabriel Bonfim inside the distance, minus 285.
Maura
Eduardo minus 145 inside the distance, and Renat by KO plus 265. There's your 3-legger. $100 pays 733. That gets us back.
Wouldn't it be something? You and I taking all of these bunny parlays at like plus 200, plus 300. Wouldn't it be hilarious if the 7-1 one was the end of one that ended up cashing?
That's what it is. I was telling my buddy Hey Drive about that because you have to put in the parlays, you have to put the plus 2 and 300s in there. The minute you parlay 2 minus 300s, it always loses.
Yeah. That number is suspiciously short for a guy that has never scored a UFC knockout. So I like it.
Yeah.
So, so like read that comment from Samuel. I'm failing and throwing my check on it so I can slide in Maddie's DMs when it doesn't hit. Talk about how your grandma. What would you do for your grandma's life? And you're like, no, bro, I love my grandma.
The questions I've been getting have been insane. People want to bet their rent checks on one pick and one pick only.
Yeah, we don't typically work that way. I actually think less is more and like kind of sprinkle a little bit of research on each fight, a little bit of leans here and there, and then you come out in the aggregate ahead.
100%.
So great show. We got 13 fights. Unfortunately, one of them we just got, so we didn't get to dive into it a lot. But if you have any questions, I on Twitter, I guess X, whatever you want to call it now, at aswame3. That is my guy Mattybetts. You already know who he is because you found him on Facebook or YouTube to come join us tonight. Next Tuesday, we're planning on Tuesday. We tried to do Tuesdays, had the Halloween last week, so we want to get these leans out early-ish before the prop markets drop. So next Tuesday, UFC 295. Maddie, really quickly, because we actually got a couple questions in chat about it. At the new UFC fight, you and I are fight nerds, so we are actually more interested in Tom Aspinall, Sergey Pavlovich than most. And then, of course, we have Alex Pereira and Yuri Prochazka as a banger for the light heavyweight title as well next week at MSG. Quick thoughts on the new heavyweight bout between Aspinall and Pavlovich, and we'll deep dive next week.
Yeah, I'm more excited for this fight for sure. And I've always been pretty high on Tom Aspinall, but I don't love his money line odds right now, to be honest.
What are we up to? Have you seen like
I've seen it around -130.
Whew. That's a lot of juice to give Sergey Pavlovich, who has not. I mean, he hasn't faced a second of adversity because his power has just been unsustainable for everyone he's fought. Like Tom can be great, but Pavlovich just kind of hits guys and they go out. It's a little bit what was going on with Francis Ngannou, right? And then he ran into Stipe the first time. So we will see if Tom Aspinall is Pavlovich's Stipe and gives us a side of him that we haven't seen before. I kind of lean Aspinall there as well, but if that moves up to -150, I think Maddie and I might also be sitting here and saying coming the other side, because like that's just a fight where the dog probably does have a lot of value.
100%.
So that is my guy, Matt Tanner, Mattybetts. You know where to find him. Austin Swaim here. My full article will be on FanDuel.com/UFC or FanDuel.com/research/UFC every Friday. Full fight breakdowns with my leans as I have them. Maddie will be dropping his card on Friday or Saturday before the fights as well. So you know where to find his finalized bets, my finalized write-ups as well. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll see you next week for UFC 295.
Thanks, everyone.